Let's go. So John Emery ineligible for the rest of the season, or is he? Could he potentially come back? And this is a big question LSU fans are asking right now. What actually happened? And goodness gracious, we need to get him back because we need all the help that we could possibly get. And I understand, but right now, I think the media, the fans, and everybody is not asking the correct question when regarding this John Emery situation, right? So obviously, we'll get to that in a second. I do want to give you the Cliff Notes version of everything that has been reported. Obviously, comment down below. Do you believe John Emery is a difference-making back for LSU? Okay? So, obviously, this is the first thing. I will never, ever side with the NCAA on any trivial matters such as this one, right? Based on what we know, the NCAA doesn't want to deem John Emery as eligible for the season because he fell short of credit hours during this summer school offseason. That's according to John Emery's attorney, per Brody Miller of the Athletic. And understand that the NCAA could just easily make him eligible because last year John Emery was going through a lot, and I feel bad for what his family went through during the pandemic. Now, there are some deeper issues I do want to get into regarding LSU's role in this John Emery story. The first is John Emery's not the only player that's academically ineligible. And I'm waiting for someone to ask Ed Orgeron or someone, and I might have missed this. I've been looking to see what exactly is going on with Sony Fanua and John Trey Kirkland. Not only are these two Tigers academically ineligible, they're also held in high regard throughout the football program. You know, especially John Trey Kirkland. People freaking love these guys. They always seem to do the right thing, but they are also academically ineligible. A lot of this is on Ed Orgeron and the entire staff of LSU football because there is a multi-million-dollar Cox facility that is for academic learning, and LSU's got some of the best tutors in the country. I knew some of them when I was there at LSU. I'm sure they've even gotten better, and it's just another black eye on the LSU football program that is just really, really bad. And Ed Orgeron deserves a lot of blame for this because, well, this is his program. I can understand if this is just one off-field thing, but when there's this much smoke, there is fire. There are hundreds of off-the-field things that LSU has to worry about right now, and that's not talking about the on-the-field product. So understand, LSU looks really bad here. The NCAA looks really bad here, and it's just bad. Just make him eligible. Allow this young man to play. This is a big year for him. It's year 3. It's his opportunity to shine and potentially show NFL scouts for him to make life-changing money, and 100% behind John Emery in this situation for him to be eligible to play right now. But we get to this question, right? And it's the most important question, and I've already actually given it to you with our comment down below question. Is John Emery actually a difference maker, right? Because we are going through a lot to get this player eligible who may or may not actually be good, okay? So obviously, comment down below. I'm going to show you some of the research I've done before even the story happened that may or may not have proven John Emery to have a breakout season this year. The first is John Emery has not been that great at LSU up to this point, okay? So in 2019, John Emery, no surprise here, we'll get a little deeper into his injury history. John Emery got a little banged up, according to Glenn Guilbeau of USA Today. John Emery was hurt. It was just a minor injury, but this was just a foreshadowing of what was to come for John Emery. That may or may not have been the reason why he got beat out by Ty Davis-Price for the number 2 back behind Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But let's be honest, he just got beat out, that number 2 back behind Clyde Edwards-Helaire, okay? Because John Emery was actually healthy for every game in 2019, okay? And there is a little bit of a concern that he wasn't able to beat out TDP. We'll get a little deeper into that. Now, let me defend Emery. LSU's running back room was really crowded at the time. Leonard Fournette was being force-fed the ball, even though he wasn't necessarily that great. He eventually left the team because he was starting to get phased out of the offense. LSU was just fine, and LSU also had Chris Curry also in that backfield at the same time. So it was a crowded backfield with some very experienced Tigers that a lot of people really loved. But honestly, Clyde Edwards-Helaire was the only real effective back that season, which led us to his 2020 performance, which was okay. Mostly meh instead of great. This has been our background image for this entire video. John Emery and the long touchdown run against Alabama. So this was obviously a good game for John Emery, right? Maybe, okay? So this was really his only effective run in this game, and the play should have actually been called back because Jason Hines got away with the hold. Outside of Jason Hines, the play was blocked perfectly, and it was also aided by the fact that a Bama player, I don't know exactly why, switched from one side of the line of scrimmage to the other right before the snap, and that was part of the reason why there was such a huge hole there. Now, John Emery made a good cut, but I'm telling you, it was perfectly blocked, which leads me to my first thing about John Emery, the lack of truly spectacular runs. Now, he had one at the end of the game against Arkansas where he broke the tackle of Grant Morgan, who's probably the best linebacker in the SEC this year. But then again, that was at the end of a game in a blowout. So John Emery, it's not good as a five-star back when your two best career rushing performances are both against Vanderbilt. That was the case in 2019 in garbage time, and in 2020, Vanderbilt was really the game where he dominated from start to finish, but still, the numbers are the numbers. It was a good performance. I wouldn't necessarily say it was purely dominant. You go look at SEC StatCat numbers, his broken tackle percentage overall is actually good, and let's be honest, John Emery didn't have the absolute best run blocking. He wasn't necessarily used the absolute best at LSU. With that said, I just haven't seen a whole lot. When you are truly a great player, you can kind of sort of see it. Now, we've seen a few flashes of brilliance, but for the most part, over a 2-year sample, well, look, it hasn't been great. Then it leads us to this. We have really only been talking about John Emery's rushing performances. The passing game is also an issue. As a pass catcher out of the backfield, he hasn't necessarily ever looked fully comfortable. And on top of that, his pass protection is beyond atrocious. We did a full film study on that. We're not going to spend too much time on it. But there were times last year where John Emery did not even run the right protection. Legit, he would go in the wrong direction of where he was supposed to go, which can get your quarterbacks killed. If you want to see those, it is floating in the top right corner, or we will post it down below. So, look, LSU is now a passing-based offense. No longer are we, the I formation. And you can make a strong case that even if you are an above average or just a great running back, you should still not play long periods of time if you're known to make mistakes in pass protection, and John Emery made those consistently. Now, he had a few amazing blocks in pass protection from time to time, but there were some really bad misses. So, yeah, that's also an issue with John Emery. The mental part of being a running back is running the right play. Now, to his defense, his running backs coach changed. Obviously, Tommy Robinson to Kev Falk. That might have played a role into it. RB coaches are very important. But still, it still wasn't a great performance for John Emery. And we already touched on the injuries. Obviously, he had the LASIK surgery before 2020. A lot of people expected that to be the reason why he would break out last year. I hope it helped him personally, but it seemed like it didn't really help him on the field that much because overall he wasn't necessarily an effective runner. So that is what John Emery has done up to this point. He has been decent, okay? But we're talking about John Emery, the second highest rated player in the history of LSU football that was a running back prospect. I mean, this guy was flat out jaw-dropping phenomenal at Destrehan. So, on one side, up to this point, we defend John Emery. He's had bad injury luck. He hasn't had the best run blocking. LSU's running back rotation was kind of weird. He never really got the opportunity to get carries in 2019. All those things are true, but on the opposite side, part of who you are as a player is your availability, and part of your availability is, can you stay healthy? That is something John Emery has not been able to do. His pass protection is a big issue. He doesn't give you a whole lot as a pass catcher out of the backfield. And on top of that, during this offseason, there were multiple instances during the media viewing of practice where John Emery was just dropping passes against air. Now, once again, that's just practice. He might catch every other pass, but that's a concern when drops were potentially an issue in 2020. So, overall, John Emery, it's a mixed bag. And let's be honest, the offense did change in 2019 when he did come in. So, look, it might not be a problem, right? He might not have played in a 2019 LSU type of offense in high school. Which leads us to another red flag here. But part of the John Emery's issue was that he did come in the same class as Ty Davis-Price, who was also a top 150 running back, who was from Baton Rouge, John Emery from Destrehan. So both running backs in close proximity to Baton Rouge. Both the running backs, have, personal ties to LSU. I believe John Emery's dad played under Ed Orgeron, which is, very interesting. So Emery wanted to go to Georgia. He ended up going to LSU with obviously another very talented back in the backfield in TDP. So, look, the LSU offense did change in 2019, and, before that, you were rarely running out of shotgun. You were playing a lot of I formation and all that stuff. But what happened in 2019 was a lot of the runs you would have as a running back would, of course, be handoffs out of shotgun. And what's very interesting was John Emery's high school tape. Now, I'm just going by the huddle tapes. John Emery had far more handoffs out of shotgun in the pistol formation than than Ty Davis-Price did, where at Southern Lab High School, TDP would take more carries out of the traditional I. So John Emery in high school played in an offense that was probably more tailor-made for what LSU was doing in 2019. Now, once again, he was a little banged up, according to reports at the time, but it was a little concerning that TDP not only beat him out, he beat him out cleanly. He was the clear number 2 behind Clyde Edwards-Helaire. It was rare that you would see John Emery, outside of maybe the Utah State game, getting a crunch time carry over TDP. The few snaps that Clyde didn't play against Alabama went to TDP, and so on and so on. And when the Oklahoma game rolled around, it was neither Clyde it was neither TDP or Emery. It was Chris Curry that actually got the carry. So the first thing here is John Emery was never able to separate from TDP. Now, why does that matter? Well, the first thing is, as you guys have seen, once again, the run blocking has not been the best. The play calling, especially this year, has been a little strange with the running backs as far as tempo and all that's concerned. But TDP, for the most part, has not been spectacular. Now, he's been solid. You can win games with TDP. If you had better run blocking, of course, you would be a better back. But TDP has not been phenomenal, and still John Emery failed to separate from him. So let's actually do this. Let's take a look at the past running backs at LSU that were 2 running back classes since 2009. As you see here, Michael Ford and Drayton Calhoun, Michael Ford was able to separate. Now, in 2010, Alfred Blue ended up being a better player than Jakari Gore, who had a lot of off-the-field issues. Then in 2011, we had Kenny Hilliard and Terrence McGee. Kenny Hilliard beat Terrence McGee out early on, and then Terrence McGee ended up being the better player, but at least early on, Kenny Hilliard beat Terrence McGee out for crunch time carries. But the guys we really want to focus on are fellow elite recruits, Leonard Fournette and Darrell Williams. As you guys know, Leonard Fournette was definitely able to separate himself from Darrell Williams, and the same thing happened in 2015. Darius Geis separated himself from Nicholas Brissett, to the point where Darrell Williams and Nicholas Brissett never really got carries until they were seniors. Now, what makes that really impressive, as many of you know, is Darrell Williams and Nicholas Brissett turned out to be really good backs at LSU, really effective backs at LSU. Nicholas Brissett ran for 1,000 yards his final year at LSU. So not only did Fournette and Geis prove that they were, beyond reasonable doubt good, they did so against really, really solid backup backs, one of which is still in the NFL. So that is pretty daggum incredible when you think about it. So in the past, elite recruits have had no problem with being so good that they were undeniably there on the field. 5-star recruits normally do pan out. If you actually look at even more data, this was a really interesting study right here from Tiege Analytics. This is different from another Tiege that we shouted out. That's such an interesting name. One is Tiege, the other is Tiege. I hope I'm saying it right. Anyway, I really love this guy. He does some really good work. And it is interesting that part of why LSU fans would want John Emery to come back is because college running backs do matter way more than in the NFL, according to Tiege's data set. And he also saw that 5-star recruits are far more important than you probably think, because if you lose another metric called wins above average, it shows you that 5-star recruits consistently put out really high WAA. So what does that mean? Well, 5-star recruits, they're 5-star recruits for a reason. They really are difference makers, and they rarely do bust. Okay, so part of all of us wanting John Emery to break out, I tweeted out when I saw the study, the data is there. The data is there, and we've seen some talent for him to break out, but we might have already seen the best of John Emery. Remember, this is a guy who was sat out for the spring game, once again, for his rehab of injuries. And if he had pass protection issues last year, well, this is a guy who was learning a new offense now, who we saw dropping passes in practice now, who we've really yet to see just dominate a game outside of Vanderbilt up to this point by now. That was not the case for other transcendent LSU running backs. It was pretty evident when Jeremy Hill was busted on the scene. It was pretty evident. Leonard Fournette, you could see it pretty quickly. Darius Geis, you could see it pretty quickly. I just haven't seen it. Now, once again, it is subjective. It's unlike some of the other stuff we talked about in this video. Still, I just don't see it, which lends us to this point. LSU's backfield is more crowded than what it was even in 2019, and by far more crowded than what it was in 2020, because we just had a McNeese game where Corey Kiner and Armani Goodwin, two of the true freshman backs, have honestly looked really good. Now, once again, it was an FCS opponent, but they looked really good for true freshmen. And LSU put forth the effort to get Trey Bradford back on LSU's campus. And look, Trey Bradford was at Oklahoma, and Trey Bradford actually closed the season out pretty strong. Now, he had a few drops out of the backfield, but he did score a crunch time fourth quarter touchdown against Florida, and he had crunch time fourth quarter carries in a win versus Ole Miss. Something we cannot say about, once again, John Emery, okay? Now, look, I'll say this one last time, and I want it to be known. He should be eligible. I'm not going to side with the NCAA over a trivial academic issue if the issue is what Brody Miller has reported via Don Jackson, obviously John Emery's attorney in this situation, okay? So understand that Emery should be allowed to play right now, especially with everything that he's been through. And yes, there are other academic issues with the players, and a lot of this does fall back on LSU. However, I am a believer in personal responsibility, right? Sometimes situations aren't your fault. Crap happens, whatever you want to say, right? That's true. And there are a bunch of external circumstances that were very unlucky in John Emery's favor. With that said, part of what made a lot of the great LSU players truly great, the Burrows, the Patrick Petersons, Devin Whites, whoever you want to mention, whether it was a high-level recruit like Patrick Peterson or a lower level recruit like Clyde Edwards-Helaire or whoever, what made them really great was that they were always available. They were always there. They were, for the most part, healthy. Jamal Adams, whoever you want to mention, they showed up, they showed out, and you could rely on them in crunch time to make big plays and just do good things on and off the field. And once again, John Emery, by all accounts, is not a bad person. My point is, you can't rely on him. The bottom line is the best trait you can have as an athlete or just a person anywhere is your availability. Always. I've always lived by that mantra. Your best ability is your availability. And this is a great example of what I'm talking about. So, once again, let's go back to the Florida game last year. All right, and TDP and Max Johnson got a little bit of a rhythm together early in that game. But what happened? Well, TDP ended up getting banged up. He got his ankle rolled up on a missed block or something like that. And John Emery was struggling. Now, I don't know if John Emery got hurt in this game, but this was his time to shine, right? TDP goes out. Once again, Emery could have been hurt. But when we really needed him, he wasn't there, okay? We go back to the pass protection thing. He was playing a crunch time snap against Mississippi State. We're trying to come back and win the game. He goes in the wrong direction, and Miles Brennan almost got killed. He was able to avoid a sack. Let's go back to the Auburn game, okay? So TJ Finley, we did a piece championship week, doing the little things to win you championships. TJ Finley had fumbled the ball, and John Emery was in position to make a tackle. And it was an easy tackle. All he had to do was grab the guy, and he wouldn't have scored. And it would have avoided it becoming 14-0. We don't know if Auburn would have gone on to score a touchdown, but that tackle there was very important to not give up a touchdown so we don't have to have our offense go right back on the field. Well, of course, John Emery didn't make the play there. He just stuck his shoulder in there and missed a very critical tackle when we really needed him to make that play, and he didn't do it. Okay? And this is always the case with John Emery. Whether, when you really need him, when you really need a crunch time play, it's just not been there. Okay? And once again, if your best games are in blowouts versus Vanderbilt and your best runs are in crunch time and we can't rely on you in pass protection, it's concerning. That is very, very concerning. And those are kind of intangible things that don't just break out. Now, once again, it could have been different this year. We don't know. But still, those to me would be red flags for anyone. And the thing is, when you're always worried about his health, once again, he didn't play in the spring game. He was always in a gold non-contact uniform. When you're always worried about these things, okay, look, he was taking up a bunch of first-team reps. He was working a lot with Jake Peets, who is Coach Christian McCaffrey as a running back coach. This is a perfect coach to help John Emery with his pass protection and become a better receiver out of the backfield. He's taken all these first-team reps. Our running backs weren't having a good game against UCLA. We really needed a 5-star breakout performance. And legit, the week of the game, we learned of this academic issue on top of wondering if he was even going to be healthy and available for the game. That's just the thing. This is John Emery's MO up to this point, that you can't rely on him. Here's what's very interesting. You can watch the John Emery pass protection. He actually made the most incredible high school prep running back play I think I've ever seen. Here's what I'll do, okay? We did a film study on it. He pancaked a pretty incredible defensive lineman that you guys probably know. You can watch that video. It'll be floating in your face in just a second. Also, I'll be putting out a blog recently on breakout age, okay? I actually left this part of the research out. There's a pretty interesting stat that I started to learn about called breakout age, and I tried to apply it to LSU football. I'm going to do a blog on it on my Substack, so subscribe to that. So I hope you enjoyed this video today. Obviously, comment down below. It is Power Hour LSU. Boom! I think we're doing tacos tonight. Let's go!